This is CBC Winnipeg News.
We are doing everything that we can to preserve life, but also to preserve people's livelihoods.
At the mercy of hot, dry weather, the Premier says Manitoba is at a serious inflection point in the fight against wildfires. Thank you for being with us. We have you covered right across the province again tonight as crews continue to battle unprecedented fires amid desperate attempts to escape. Josh Crabb is in Opaskwayak Cree Nation, where some evacuees from Puckatawagan are starting to arrive, and Gavin Axelrod is at the legislature, where the Premier spoke and gave an update this afternoon. Let's start, though, with the CBC's Josh Crabb in northern Manitoba. Josh, you've made your way north up Highway 10. What is the latest where you are right now?
Riley, people are being brought to this evacuation center at the arena in OCN once they land by helicopter in Snow Lake or at the Paw Airport. We're told by evacuees and local officials here that's the only way out of Puckatawagan at this point. We spoke to a couple of evacuees from Puckatawagan who just got to OCN this morning. They were on a helicopter with 10 other people. Daniel Biggity and Linda Colombe described a tense ordeal leaving their First Nation. Thick smoke and hundreds of people waiting for their turn to leave, tired, hungry, and stressed.
Smoke was very heavy.
And there's patients out there that need the medical help, that need that medical attention.
Diane Pelly is running the evacuation center here at OCN. She says once people arrive here, they're being moved to southern Manitoba. Pelly says it's been a stressful situation for everyone involved.
As you can tell, it's obviously very emotional. We've been fortunate to have our health team part of the process and being on site and helping with the trauma that they're experiencing.
Pelly says some people are being moved by bus to southern Manitoba. Others are taking the train from the Paw.
And Josh, we are hearing things have taken a turn in Flin Flon.
That's right. Just north of us, Riley, we're hearing from the mayor that a 40,000 hectare fire there is threatening the community because of a shift in the wind. We're told by the mayor that that fire this morning was just 400 meters from Flin Flon. The last bus left town this morning with the mayor and council on it. Firefighters are still there fighting the inferno, but the mayor says the situation is critical and it's in Mother Nature's hands. Danny Amont lives there. He spent the last 2 nights in a Dauphin hotel with his family, including a dog and 3 cats. He just moved to Flin Flon and is concerned about losing his home.
It's difficult because, you have to leave so much behind. It's like every memory I have is in that house, packed in a box or just on display.
Amont is preparing for the worst, but hoping for the best. Like so many others, he's just taking this evacuation day by day. Riley.
Thank you, Josh. The CBC's Josh Crabb in Opaskwayak Cree Nation. Meantime, more help is on the way to fight wildfires in Manitoba. Gavin Axelrod is outside the Manitoba legislature tonight. Gavin, what did the Premier have to say today?
Well, Riley, the province is looking for help beyond our borders and even beyond the country's borders. And that's because the wildfire situation across Canada is so bad and so resource demanding that the organization that actually helps the province out with those requests for extra help says that all Canadian firefighting resources that would normally be available are spoken for. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew says more help from the U.S. is on the way.
Today, we received news that 125 firefighters will be coming from the United States. That's 100 firefighters proper, and then 25 managerial workers who will be able to provide logistical supports. We cannot thank other jurisdictions enough.
So, Gavin, what are people from the communities fighting these fires saying about the help they've gotten so far?
Well, right now in the small northern Manitoba town of Sheridan, they're battling a massive out-of-control fire. Now, the residents there were evacuated Sunday night, but only those who are fighting the fire were allowed to stay. Deputy Mayor Cheryl Matheson says a crew of about 20 people have been battling that blaze. Some of those people are actually volunteers from the community, and there's also people from Wildfire Services that have been helping out. And Matheson says they did get some relief today. They had a couple of water bombers that were helping to fight that fire, and another crew of firefighters is on the way. But Matheson also says while there is relief, she wishes some of that help could have been there sooner.
Given that it's 60,000 hectares, we question could this have been looked at earlier. And I certainly commend the wildfire program, but I think that more funding needs to go into it to have more people and equipment available earlier.
And so Riley, after we spoke to the Deputy Mayor of Sheridan, we then had that news conference from the Premier. And I asked the Premier that because of some of those concerns, is it time for Manitoba to spend more money on wildland firefighters and those resources here in Manitoba? He says this year is a unique situation because there's so many fires in so many different regions at the same time.
Looking ahead, Manitoba is going to have to build our wildfire service in the future with the capacity to respond to seasons like this.
But Riley, at the same time, the Premier also says they're going to use every single resource available to them to fight these fires. Riley.
Thanks, Gavin. Gavin Axelrod outside the legislature. Remote northern First Nations closed in by wildfires are still waiting to be flown out in some cases. The armed forces started helping yesterday. About 100 community members were taken out of Puckatawagan. But last night, the airport and only way out was closed due to smoke. Rosanna Hempel has the story.
Engulfed in smoke, the airport in remote Puckatawagan closed Thursday night. 28 people crowded into Serena Moore's home. And then this happened overnight.
We heard, sounded like an explosion. That's why we went outside. And when I went outside, there was a lot of things falling from the sky, and I didn't know what it was until I turned my light on my camera and I seen the ashes, and it was very scary.
More than 2,000 community members, including babies and elders, were trapped by flames and heavy smoke.
I don't think most of anybody slept in the community. Like, everybody was in panic mode. Like, people were getting their boats ready, canoes.
On Friday, helicopters began landing near the youth center, transporting about 6 people out at a time to the PA, a city 200 kilometers south. Rose Linklater says the evacuation has been chaotic and hectic, with nearly no communication from officials.
We wait for an update or something. Like, most of the time, in the past 2-3 days, we've been left in the dark, and people are just like more scared, unsure, because we see the fire.
Band councillors in Winnipeg urging the province in Ottawa for more support fast.
We need some action, and that's the reason why we're here.
You know, the call went out days ago while we had an airstrip. We asked, we pleaded, it fell on deaf ears.
Meanwhile, evacuees who had fled Cross Lake, Pimicikamak to Norway House Cree Nation are being flown out in military Hercules aircrafts. Chief David Monia says about 1,000 people stranded in Cross Lake can now drive out on the highway to Winnipeg. Meanwhile, in Puckatawagan, people wait for a safe way out too. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
To eastern Manitoba, where residents of Bessette were ordered to leave by today. This is due to the fire that's burning in Nopaming Provincial Park. The community's council issuing that order last night while also declaring a state of emergency. About 115 people live in that eastern Manitoba community. A lot of this has been very dependent on the winds and the hot weather we've seen. Let's get a first check on our forecast with meteorologist Colette Kennedy.
Thanks, Riley. So many different factors to look at here with the weather. The wind's really important. We're going to spend a lot of time on those tonight. But I do just want to start off with the air quality alerts, the same areas in our hot spots as well towards the southeast. But just being aware, because the winds are going to be changing direction, that means where the smoke is concentrated can change as well. So even all the areas within the statement, if you have a neighbor or a family member who has respiratory issues and they've been okay up to now, you may want to be checking on them, or take it easy yourself if you're the one with those kinds of breathing issues. Focusing in on the winds here towards Flin Flon and what we're looking at, this is ahead of that frontal boundary, the front that doesn't have much moisture with it, unfortunately. Once we get behind this, as we go through the night tonight into tomorrow morning, that's when we get into that northwesterly flow pushing things along, and also when you've got those wind gusts. You see that number in yellow, where some cases it's going to be up to 40 or even exceeding 40 kilometers an hour. By tomorrow evening, we get a shift once again, but of course that complicates things, making it difficult to be fighting these wildfires as well. So much going on here. As we know, the heat is in place. In some cases, these numbers would be even warmer if it weren't for the hazy or smoky skies. And that's kind of what we're going to see as we move through the day tomorrow. Tonight in Winnipeg, it's 18 degrees. By tomorrow morning, 16. Yes, that kind of milky to gray sky in place with the northwesterly flow. And tomorrow, 30 at least, because depending how much sun can filter through, we may find that temperature even warmer. We'll have more on all of these details coming up.
Thank you so much, Colette. Still ahead, an outpouring of donations to support wildfire evacuees. How you can help out when we come back. Stay with us. Well, as you've seen, the wildfire emergency is forcing thousands of people out of their homes in our province. Many of those only had time to pack a small bag of their belongings before they fled. Now, some Manitoba organizations are stepping in to help by collecting donations, all in an effort to help the evacuees who are in need. Mike Arsenault reports.
We packed up what we could, what we had packed, and then we hit the highway.
Jamie Edworthy and his daughter Bethany left Flin Flon Wednesday evening with the clothes on their back and a couple bags. The wildfires edging towards Flin Flon forced them to evacuate to Winnipeg, but how long they'll be here is unknown, and they're short on essentials.
Say like diapers and things like that from a little girl, and clothes like I didn't pack any shorts, and it's so hot down here.
Thousands of people have been displaced by wildfires in northern Manitoba, and there's an urgent need for supplies. Here at the First Nations Family Advocate Office, bags of donations are being sorted and organized. Kayla Frank says they wanted to support the wildfire evacuees, so they set up a donation drive.
So we're getting a lot of clothing, we're getting a lot of hygiene items as well too. I think it's important that we also get snacks for families and for children.
Outside the office, Winnipeggers are lining up to give those donations. Darcy Cote came to drop off some clothes, diapers, and shoes. She has family up north who are at risk of being evacuated, and she wanted to help.
And the idea that people are struggling up north and they have to leave their home is just really heartbreaking. So I just think if we can help in any way, we're trying down here as best we can for what we can do.
Andrew Kershane dropped off some donations too. He says if he were forced to evacuate, he hopes people would do the same for him.
Like, you don't know what you're going back to, so having some comfort where you're going, I think it's a good thing, and it's why I want to help.
The Manitoba Métis Federation is also collecting donations, and the Red Cross has set up a link on their website for financial donations to help Manitoba wildfire evacuees. People like Edworthy and his daughter, who are grateful for the support.
We're all Manitobans down here, and they're really helping us out.
Premier Wab Kinew says thousands from northern parts of Manitoba could still be evacuated from their communities. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Hiking trails in all 93 of Manitoba's provincial parks are now closed. The province says it is part of travel restrictions imposed as fire danger remains high and the potential for human activity to start new wildfires. Similar travel and fire restrictions were already in place for parks in the east of the province where fires burned out of control through the Whiteshell and into Nopaming Provincial Park. The measures are now being extended to parks right across the province. Affordable housing advocates rallied outside Premier Wab Kinew's constituency office today. The Right to Housing Coalition is calling out the provincial government for failing to pass legislation strengthening rent control. They say it's unlikely any legislation will be passed before next spring, more than 2 years after the NDP came to power.
This is something that the Premier can do that will cost their government almost nothing. It's a legislative change, it's just a fix to the rules. And so we would like to know what is taking so long, because while it costs the government nothing, it's costing tenants every single month when they pay their rent.
The NDP introduced a bill limiting above guideline rent increases shortly after being elected in 2023, but they didn't vote on it before the end of the session, and the bill hasn't been reintroduced. Well, 2 people are in custody after breaking into Polo Park Mall and spraying security guards with bear spray. Police say witnesses saw 2 people break into a truck in the surface parking lot Sunday morning. When they were confronted, police say the 2 made their way into the mall, broke into a store, pried open several drawers and stole a laptop. They then forced their way into a second store and tried to break open a cash box. Police say when security tried to stop them, they were bear sprayed. They were arrested by police near the front entrance. An 18-year-old man and a 15-year-old boy are now in custody facing numerous charges. Well, we are on the heels of a very hot and dry weekend ahead. Let's get back to Colette with our weekend forecast.
Thanks, Riley. The wind's so important. We talked about those already. We're going to come back to those as well. But also just the inability to get any moisture, any significant rainfall. Here we have a frontal boundary, but it's going to have more of an impact on kicking up the winds and changing the direction, and not in a favorable way. Then really we're getting moisture. You can see through here, in fact, how it's drying up along that boundary as we've been moving forward in time. So any moisture even that comes through tends to skirt and going just around to the north, not where we need it, north of Flin Flon. And that's the situation even with this area of low pressure that you could see coming through as we get into the beginning of the week. Now that's going to cool some temperatures down. It also may bring some rain into southern Manitoba, which we'll talk about more as well. But looking at those winds, here we go. As that front comes through, we get into that westerly, and then it does become that northwesterly flow as well, gusty. So just very challenging conditions where we have our hot spots here. It changes the winds to the northwest as well, as we've actually been seeing through Winnipeg. Watch what it does to the smoke at the surface too. It's not necessarily that we're seeing improvement. You just get the idea. It diffuses the tiniest bit, but really it's just moving around and swirling as we see the winds changing direction. And we still have that concentration as well down towards the southeastern part of the province. So not really much of an improvement through there. The winds do get a little bit better once we get to, say, tomorrow night or certainly into early Sunday. Now, looking at those temperatures, this is dependent on how much smoke is in the sky. And I do expect a hazy sky in Winnipeg tomorrow, tonight through tomorrow with that flow that we've been getting. So 30 degrees, it could pop up to say 31. Sunday, kind of the same thing. Skies should be a little bit better with another change in the winds, but 33, perhaps even popping up to 34 degrees through here. Then we go into Monday, a chance for some showers. I know I've put this on the icon like there's lots of moisture, but if anything, it's almost cruel. As we're getting closer to that day, the models are starting to shift and taking the moisture away. So I've got showers in there, but this is mostly for southern parts of the province, not essentially where we need it. And then we get that climb, building those temperatures back up into next week.
All right, thank you so much, Colette. Well, it is not often the Canadian women's national soccer team comes to Winnipeg, but the team is playing a special match on Saturday, celebrating the contributions of Desiree Scott. The Winnipeg-born midfielder is retiring from the national team. She spoke with the CBC's Matt Humphrey ahead of the match.
After 14 years with the national team, Olympic gold medalist Desiree Scott is stepping away from the world stage.
Just time to move on and, move on to the next steps.
The 37-year-old Winnipegger will continue playing with Ottawa's Rapid FC, but she'll don the red and white one last time to take on Haiti in a celebratory match on Saturday, capping off a national career of 3 Olympic medals, representing Winnipeg the whole time.
I have always wanted to put Winnipeg on the map, especially in the soccer community. I am one of the few that have come from here to have gone on to be successful in the sport. But for me, I'm so proud to come from here, and I think there's been so many coaches, fans from here who've supported my entire career.
Her brother, Nick, remembers when she was dubbed the Destroyer.
She just went up against the most ruthless players in the world, and it just kind of perspired to be like the Destroyer. It wasn't even, I don't even think it was from her team. I think it was just, might have been a commentating thing that said, oh, the Destroyer, she's destroying something.
And he remembers when everything changed in Desiree's career.
The senior coach at the time was just like, she's small, and then she is. And it wasn't until a few years later that Karina LeBlanc was like, you got to look at this girl, like from Manitoba.
And Scott's excited to pass on the torch.
My advice to a young girl who maybe wants to play for Canada one day is, one, make the soccer ball your best friend. You've got to practice, but you've got to love it as well.
Some parting advice from a Winnipeg star. Matt Humphrey, CBC News, Winnipeg.
How are you?
Well, as we look at these images of people leaving northern Manitoba amid wildfires, our ongoing coverage of the wildfires in Manitoba continues. More on that coming up after the break. Well, as you heard earlier in the show, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew gave an update on the wildfire situation in the province this afternoon. Now, there was a lot of important information in that news conference, from the communities that are being evacuated to the help that is arriving from out of the country, and some phone numbers if your loved one was in a hospital that was evacuated. Now, there are a lot of people on the move in the province right now, and some may have missed some of this information, so we thought we would bring you a portion of that news conference now.
As we speak, a number of Hercules planes are transporting citizens of Pimichigamak from Norway House Cree Nation here to Winnipeg. We have a number of other Canadian Armed Forces aircraft transporting people from Puckatawagan to the PA, where they will be able to access medical attention, though we haven't had any indications that that is needed, and subsequently be transported to Winnipeg. As a result of these activities, the hospital in the PA has been put on code orange. In the city of Flin Flon, a final evacuation has occurred. That means that the mayor and council have made the decision that conditions there today are so serious that even those last few workers and officials needed to leave town. We had our healthcare workers leave this morning, mayor and council, and some final buses shortly after that. And the only folks remaining on the ground are the firefighters and folks from the Office of the Fire Commissioner and RCMP who are there to battle the blaze. We do expect some very, very challenging conditions in Flin Flon and in the surrounding community, particularly later this afternoon. The situation there is very, very serious, and we are doing everything that we can to preserve life, but also to preserve people's livelihoods and homes in the region. Because of that same threat, we have also made the decision to evacuate Baker's Narrows, the provincial parks and cottage country in the area there. The community of Sheridan is surrounded by wildfire, and so value protection and firefighters continue to hold it off there in the region. The community of Bassett also evacuated today in the more eastern part of the province. Yesterday we had a fire start in Split Lake, Tatasquiac Cree Nation. The situation there was very concerning for residents and for leadership. I was in touch with leadership in the community many times over the course of the day. Hydro, cell connectivity, providing shelter for folks who had to see their homes evacuated from Tatasquiac are all important considerations we've been working on over the past 24 hours. And then we turned to Puckatawagan, where the situation was very, very dangerous and scary for people in that community overnight. Between the 2 and 3 o'clock hours of the morning, there were many calls for help. In particular, I want to highlight local emergency management officials from the community of Puckatawagan, as well as MKO, the Manitoba Kuwait Noe Ogimakaanak, who contacted us and let us know that the fire situation had worsened considerably, that the airport was being threatened, and that there was a lot of concern, and then a desperate need to accelerate the movement of people out of that community. So as I said, the Canadian Armed Forces responded swiftly. They had a helicopter to do reconnaissance on the ground before 6 a.m. Today. A number of helicopters and fixed-wing crafts have been moving people out since then. We have been able to confirm that the airport was not damaged by that fire. Heavy smoke conditions have prevailed there for quite a bit of the day. And so this does provide an additional layer of complexity to what we're trying to accomplish to get people to safety. So, to our fellow Manitobans, I would say over the course of the day today, we can expect thousands of more people from the northern parts of our province to be moved out of their communities or neighboring communities to find their way to safety in other parts of Manitoba, predominantly here in Winnipeg. However, we should also highlight cities like Thompson and Portage-la Prairie and the Pas, among many others, the Opaskwayak Cree Nation, the Norway House Cree Nation, the Nisitchewayasig Cree Nation, who are all welcoming people into congregate shelters. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to visit a reception center here in Winnipeg, and I spoke to many folks who were evacuated from Flin Flon, as well as Creighton, Saskatchewan, and Puckatawagan. I want to take a moment to commend the very compassionate and important work that civil servants, the Canadian Red Cross, folks from the Health Authority here in Winnipeg, as well as from Shared Health, are all delivering, as well as Salvation Army, to care for people during their time of need. Very scary, very tiring, long days for people who've been on the road and in the air to find their way to safety, and very, very long days and very tiring ones at that for the people who are delivering help. So we have a very, very serious situation that continues to cause serious threats in many parts of our province. However, we have the best of the best when it comes to firefighting. We are engaged with local leaders in cities, in towns, and First Nations to ensure that they have the resources that they need to fight the flames and to get their citizens to safety. The situation across Canada is very, very grave and very serious. And our hearts go out to our neighbors in Saskatchewan, who are battling massive wildfires in their province, and we certainly appreciate the engagement. I had the opportunity to speak with Premier Moe yesterday. But because that situation is so serious across Canada, we are now turning internationally for help. I shared some information about Colombian helicopters yesterday, and today we received news that 125 firefighters will be coming from the United States. That's 100 firefighters proper, and then 25 managerial workers who will be able to provide logistical supports. We cannot thank other jurisdictions enough. Folks from Alberta, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, the flight crews and bombers, water bombers from Ontario and from the territories, the other equipment and resources we've received from Quebec, and now turning to our neighbors from the south to help us in our time of need. Not too long after we had Winnipeg firefighter in Los Angeles helping Americans during their time of need. It really does just underline how serious the situation is.
What additional resources does the province need to fight these fires, and do you have enough right now?
Yeah, we will use every assistance that we can get. In particular, in the coming days, actually right before this press conference, I was going back and forth with the federal government, and we are asking for more firefighting equipment and more firefighters. In the coming days, we will also need those logistical supports, because this is going to be a continued effort to keep Manitobans safe. So in addition to people who are going to be on the front lines battling the flames, we also need people who are going to be cooks and able to demobilize and move equipment, people who can map the fires as they continue to develop, and then all the transportation and logistics, the mechanics that support the aircraft and all of those things. So it really is an important time where we're very reassured that we can turn to the federal government, the Canadian Armed Forces, our provincial and territorial neighbors, and our neighbors to the south for help in this firefight.
You kind of touched on it before about looking internationally for firefighters, but I'm wondering, like, how does it feel that the provinces, I guess, are almost in a battle for sort of much needed resources during these fires and things like that?
We're working together with the other provinces. One of the things that has emerged, and it's been explained to me as a lesson learned from previous wildfire seasons, is the need to coordinate. And that's where this CFC, the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Center, which is here, really comes into play. So Saskatchewan has a province-wide state of emergency. Alberta is seeing evacuations. We're in a state of emergency. So to ensure that you can protect your home front while sending resources to a jurisdiction like ours to help out, that's what we're seeing emerge as the Canadian partnership to respond to this wildfire season.
Is it just personnel from the U.S. that's coming, or will there be equipment too?
I think there will be equipment as well.
Like water bombers or?
Well, what we shared yesterday is that there were 2 helicopters, which I believe are Colombian, but they are being deployed from the United States. And then we have these 125 individuals, again, 100 of them firefighters, 25 who are managers to help with the logistical effort. This is for patients, families who your loved one has been moved from a personal care home or a hospital bed in northern Manitoba. You want to get an update on where they're traveling to, how can you contact them, how can you connect. The first number I'll give you, 204-788-8200, 204-788-8200. That's local here in Winnipeg. And then a toll-free number province-wide in Manitoba, 1-888-315-9257. So 1-888-315-9257. This is live right now. It's hosted by HealthLinks, so you'll have a live person on the other end of the call. And this is Wildfire Health Info. So this is about patients from hospitals and personal care homes who've been relocated as a result of the evacuations. You're concerned about your loved one, you're traveling separately from them, whatever situation that you're confronted with, please reach out, 1-888-315-9257 or 204-788-8200.
All right, that was some of that news conference that Premier Wab Kinew held earlier today at the Manitoba Legislature. Of course, you can stay up to date on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, as evacuees slowly begin to settle into hotels, community centres and recreation facilities across the province, we'll check in with some of them as they arrive in Winnipeg, and we'll tell you how some communities across the province are pitching in. Those stories ahead. Stay with us. We are back right after this. All right, with some 17,000 people now either out of their homes or waiting to leave, evacuees are slowly settling into hotels, community centres and recreation facilities right across the province, from Thompson to Norway House, Dauphin, Brandon, Portage La Prairie, and here in Winnipeg. That's where many of them are now ending up, with many more surely to follow as people continue to leave the north. The CBC's Zabina Ahmed caught up with some people who were arriving at Winnipeg's Century Arena.
As a massive evacuation continues due to the wildfires in northern Manitoba, many made their way to Winnipeg. Century Arena is one of the places where the evacuees have been put up. Alphonse Bigudi came from Puckatawagan by plane. He says his house is safe, but the wildfires were chaotic and out of control.
It was red, orange. In the night time, holy cow, it was unbelievable.
Was there a lot of smoke?
Lots of smoke, and poles, our power poles burnt. The whole thing burnt.
Cheyenne Bartle from Flin Flon says the first thing she saved and got was her birds. She says her house was fine when she left.
It's pretty hectic. Like, we could hardly see through the smoke and stuff at certain points. Like, it's getting scary, so we took off pretty fast.
Bus driver Jerry Moran says he has been driving evacuees from Billy Mozianko Arena to different evacuation centres. He says some will be taken to Portage La Prairie.
We got, I think, 9 o'clock this morning was the first group, and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and now 9 o'clock at night.
Known as a handyman in Flin Flon, Andy says he got a few minutes to pack when the evacuation order came.
I just took what I needed. I figure my house is going to be okay.
He says it took him 15 hours to reach here in a school bus.
Actually, it went really fast, and they had the town pretty well cleaned out pretty quick. Everybody followed what they were supposed to do.
Brandon Perry from Flin Flon says he only managed to take his iPad and 2 sweaters.
A little distraught because everything happened so fast and didn't get to pack very well. But I don't know, trying to keep hopes high and hopefully we have a home to go back to.
Perry says things back home were pretty smoky and everyone was quite frantic while evacuating. He is now looking forward to be back home. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, to the west now, Saskatchewan has joined Manitoba in declaring a state of emergency. Wildfires are also raging across the northern part of that province, forcing people to head south for safety. In Saskatchewan, there are 7 fires that are burning out of control. A blaze near Pelican Narrows has already forced out some 4,000 residents, and 2 fires have merged north of Prince Albert, forming the so-called Chew Fire, which covers an area 10 times the size of Saskatoon. In the last month, there's been double the number of fires in Saskatchewan than in the entire average season. Hot weather is fueling the flames, and no rain is forecast in the coming days. To Newfoundland, where emergency crews continue to battle a wildfire burning near Churchill Falls in Labrador. It is now being held, and officials say the weather is improving and should help efforts to fight it. The province's forestry minister says 2 fires merged into one on Thursday. It's now about 170 hectares in size. However, officials say the winds are blowing the fire away from the community, leaving smoldering ground fires, which allow crews to get water onto hot spots further into the woods. Some wet weather is expected to start there on Saturday and continue for several more days, which officials say could help the firefighting efforts. And here in Manitoba, that hot, dry pattern continues. Colette, is there any relief from that hot weather in sight?
Riley, what we've found over the last couple of days is essentially that dome and the hottest air has been sliding eastward as anticipated. So now when we look at the jet stream, see how all of Manitoba basically encompassed in this ridge that is in play through here. We have the one frontal boundary pushing through, not terribly strong along this trough, not much moisture, unfortunately, associated with it. The next one that comes will have more of an impact and pulling the temperatures down. This is really just having a change to those winds, which we desperately don't want to see. But as we get into that northwesterly flow, still those alert areas, still have the one, by the way, towards the southeast. But as you know, I've been trying to point out, even for those who've been doing okay, these winds are changing where the smoke is more concentrated. So you really have to be careful or look out for those around you, family members, or maybe a neighbor who might have any kind of respiratory issue, because it can change so much, especially in these next 24 to 36 hours. Let's watch this area, Lynn Lake through Flin Flon down to Swan River. As the trough comes through, that's where we get later on, kind of overnight tonight into tomorrow morning, to a north to northwesterly flow, but it also gets those winds kicked up so that they're even stronger, getting into some of those gusts over 30 to even potentially 40 kilometers an hour. All right, checking out what's going on with your forecast through tonight. Southern areas still looking at some low to say mid-teens for your lows. Yeah, the rain, any rain that's coming and in the forecast with both systems that we're seeing. The first one is light and it goes to the north of our hotspot areas, and then the next one, there's more significant rain, but it too is going to skirt to the north. So taking you through Flin Flon by tomorrow afternoon. Yes, the situation there keeps that temperature around 25, and going through the day, checking out what you're going to be doing for Brandon, 29. Winnipeg, I'd say between 30 and that 32. It does have to do with how much smoke we get in the sky and how concentrated that is. So a look at what's coming. This is not with the trough. This is as we go into the beginning of next week, not to the north, but yes, there's a chance further south of us getting some rainfall. Unfortunately, as we get closer to this event, Riley, the models are pulling back on the amount. Now it's 5 to 10 as opposed to what was looking like 10 to 20 millimeters of rain.
Peguis First Nation is one of many communities stepping up and welcoming evacuees. I'm joined by Doug Thomas, who is the Communications Director for the First Nation. Thank you for your time today.
Hi, Riley. Thanks for having me.
So what is the situation where you are right now?
Right now, we have about 65 people registered in Peguis. We could house up to 300 people in the arena. So we have the community hall set up as a makeshift evacuation center where we have cots set up, and we asked the community to volunteer and donate bedding, sheets, and pillows. And we had an overwhelming response from the community, so we were able to put them all up in comfort. And we also have piles of donations from community members, and we also have a lot of neighboring communities like Fisher River offering their laundromat services for free for the community. So it's been quite a busy day and hectic around here, and I'm not sure if we're getting any more. We do have the capacity to hold more, but right now I think we're at 65 right now.
Okay. You mentioned that you could take potentially up to 300 people there. How is everybody getting to Peguis?
Right now, they were coming by buses, so I think they don't have transportation from Winnipeg right now, or I'm not sure how many people are still coming, but we do have capacity for more.
Okay. What is the mood like as people begin to arrive? You mentioned 65 people have been registered so far. How are people feeling as they're arriving in the community?
One family that I was visiting and interviewing earlier today, they were very happy to be here. They said that they felt very safe and that they felt welcomed, and that they were having a good time here, actually, because there's family here. So, in fact, I have some people at my house visiting right now, and it's actually very nice to see people around, and the community spirit is high. But right now, the priority is the safety, dignity, and well-being of the community and their members that are here.
For sure. How has the community stepped up? You'd mentioned that people have been bringing in bedding and other items. How has the community as a whole in Peguis stepped up?
As a whole, we've seen an overwhelming response of people donating. There was some call out for strollers and some baby clothes and items like that we placed out there. And in fact, we got an overwhelming response in clothing. So we had to ask people to refrain from bringing clothing. But we are still accepting food items, snack items, and things like that people could eat, and games for the children. We have a movie theater set up. We set up a big screen in the community hall for the kids to watch TV and movies on the big screen. We have a pool table and Lots of games for the kids in the arenas. It's set up as a multiplex recreation center, so it's very comfortable, and we're seeing the community using the facilities, which is nice for them to enjoy the facilities that we have.
So as people start to arrive now by bus and by other means, so what do the coming days look like for folks who are arriving there in Peguis?
Right now, it's the big question is how long are they going to be here, and how long until they can go home, and that's the difficult question because nobody knows, and the priorities are safety right now and getting them out of there, and so we do have places here for them, but yeah.
All right, Doug, Thomas, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you guys well in the coming days.
Miigwech, thanks for having me.
All right, when we come back, we will give you the latest on the wildfire situation in Manitoba and what you need to know as we head into what is likely to be a very hot and dry weekend right across the province. And Colette has our 7-day forecast. Stay with us. We are back right after this.
All right, let's just take a look. What do we have coming here as we move into the weekend and the beginning of next week? We know it's going to be hot and dry through the weekend, breezy at times, as we've talked about through the show. Tomorrow, at least 30 for the high in Winnipeg. There will be some smokiness to the skies, hazy conditions. Sunday, 33 to perhaps 34. A chance for those rain showers, more so toward the southern part of the province through Monday. And then the temperatures will be building into next week again after a break for a couple of days, but we get into a slight chance for some showers again, which are so desperately needed, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Colette. Let's return to our ongoing coverage of the wildfires in Manitoba. And before we leave you, we'll get you the latest information on those fires burning across the province. As of today, 25 active fires are burning in Manitoba. 13 of those are out of control. A final evacuation in Flin Flon happened today with only firefighters and the RCMP now remaining. The fire near the community has held at nearly 38,000 hectares. A number of other communities are also being evacuated, including Baker's Narrows in northern Manitoba. That is new today, as well as Bissett in eastern Manitoba near Nopaming Provincial Park. The province expects the number of evacuees to reach 17,000 by the end of the day today. Efforts are also now being bolstered by about 100 more firefighters and 25 logistics managers from the United States. The Red Cross is asking people who are forced out of their homes to register online or by calling 1-800-863-6852. The province has also set up a hotline. This is new today as well for people to get updates on family members who were moved from hospital beds or personal care homes because of wildfires. That can be reached by calling 204-788-8200 or toll free at 1-888-315-9257. Those numbers are both on your screen right there. If you need any wildfire information, whether it's resources, where to go if you're evacuated, anything of that sort, you can also dial the number 211. You can also find up-to-date wildfire coverage on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba or on CBC Lite. That is a low bandwidth version of our website. For now, thank you so much for watching. Take good care, be safe, and be well this weekend. And we'll see you again on Monday.